Live from KTUL Tulsa. You're watching Good Day Tulsa.
Well, it is National Grilling Month, and we thought we would celebrate by learning more about the history of grilling.
Joining us here to share some information for National Grilling Month is celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. What a great summer topic.
Yeah,
yes.
No kidding, no kidding. And you gotta jazz up the name a little more. Celebrity historian Raffi Andonian.
It even rhymes.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Does.
It
He
rhymes.
had more coffee than me this morning, so
I hate coffee. First up, we were talking about this earlier when we were setting everything up. Grilling is a thing, obviously, we're talking about this month, but it's a relatively recent phenomenon.
It is relatively recent. Now, of course, people have been cooking over fire for centuries upon centuries, but it very much is a North American thing. For example, it starts when Columbus encounters indigenous peoples in the Caribbean, and he sees what we would call barbecue, more the slow-cooked barbecue, the indirect wood, the green wood, the moist wood. But that actually eventually spreads across and transforms more recently into grilling. And when I say recently, we're talking about the 1950s. And so while fire has been around for a long time, obviously, and that slow-cooked barbecue has been around for centuries, at least on the European record from the Columbus records, the way it transforms into the grilling, which some people call barbecue, but I know can be contentious because some people think barbecue is a slow-cooked stuff.
Right.
So we'll just call it grilling. That version of it pops up really after World War II.
Wow, okay, and so, we feel the American spirit, right? We're 4th of July, we're grilling. What makes it feel so American?
Well, think about the era it comes up in, right? The 1950s, it's the Cold War, and being American is very important, especially back then. Now, I'll give you an example. I mean, the number of articles that they write about grilling in the 50s is more than any other decade. And the industry and revenue triples in size in the 1950s. So it's in the context of Americanness. So let's think about this for a second. The Cold War, you have sort of this, the democratic principles against, of course, communism, the Soviet Union. So red meat represented this sort of fortitude and the abundance. We still kind of think of meat in abundance, if you think about it, that we're able to do that the communist regime could not, for example. It's a great contrast. Another thing to consider in that era is the fact that you have a very unstable world at that point. You got the Cold War, you got the hot war in Korea, you got Europe being, reconstructed. And so in that context, it kind of stabilizes the home because now you have the man that's cooking the meat, handling, going back to the origins, the hunter, is sort of this in their memory, and the woman going from back into the private sphere after having come up working in industry during World War II, kind of going back to the private sphere where they should be, and they're in the mindset of the folks that are doing this, right? Now, another thing related to this is connecting back to American roots, because our story is pioneering roots and all of that. And so if you think about it, there's sort of this notion of, well, cowboys cooked on grills is kind of how we would imagine it from movies and things. And so it kind of allows us to connect to that individualism, that grit, and that rugged American. And finally, the other thing to consider here in that makes it feel so American is the immigrant narrative. Remember, we talked about the fact that, if you really trace it back, you have the indigenous influence and then the Spanish influence. James Beard, who's still, he's dead now, but a chef who's, there's an award still named after today, he referred to the multiculturalism of grilling and barbecue that really makes it so American. We have Mexican, we have Korean, we have Polynesian, and we have influence with all these different cultures. So it really helped tell the multicultural story of America, and it's all happening in the 50s. The poems, the stories, even how to assemble a grill, the rise of corporate grill parties and things like that. And these Americanness, if you will, is what's helping sort of make this so American. And we still draw upon some of these stories today, if you think about it.
Yeah, and we got like 30 seconds left, so here's a big question I'm going to throw at you, of course, at the end here. Where do you think we are now? So if that's where we were in the 50s, of trying to kind of be like, I'm not in a bread line in communist Russia, I'm here grilling. Is that still a part of it, or now is it just like, you know what, I just like cooking things up with my family and we've just always done it that way?
I think as usual with these things, they kind of evolve, right? So I think there's elements of that, because I do think, like, for example, when you think of grilling, you think of July 4th, right?
Yeah.
I think it's associated with Americanness. We may not be as conscious of some of these elements we're talking about, but you learn things from your grandparents, right? And this is how we're much more likely in the United States to be doing their backyard grill than in other countries. And so I would say that we're kind of unknowingly exercising and eating history, if you will, and, you know, using these tools and feeling like we're back in touch with our roots. But I do think that it's absolutely associated with a good time today, but there's a reason and an origin of where it comes from. And being aware of that, I think, kind of makes us more aware of our heritage and where some of our beliefs come from.
Okay.
And you got to smack the tongs together.
That's right.
You have to. It's like 2 to 3 times every 5 minutes.
I like my tie. Don't steal my tie. Thank you so much for coming in and once again giving us more than just the basic context of what's going on. For more information, Raffi's an expert on everything. So for more information on Raffi Andonian, you can go to celebrityhistorian.com.
You're watching Good Day Tulsa.
Well, right on topic with this, we were just talking with Raffi Andonian, who, by the way, has written books about the atomic bomb. So something interesting to dig into. Renowned director Christopher Nolan is also back with one of the most anticipated films in recent memory. Oppenheimer is the film that tells the story of American scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer and his role in the development of the atomic bomb.